Hello everyone, welcome to Family Gardening and Nature Club. This week we're going to be talking all about soil, worms and earthworms, compost worms and compost. So I'm going to talk all about the soil here. So all I've done is I've dug a little square in the ground with my spade, and that's let me take out this little block of soil. Okay, so now we can look at all the different stuff that's happening in here. Soil is really important because that's what everything's growing in, that's what the plants are growing in. So here's just some grass, there's a bit of clover in there, and obviously the leaves are all above the ground, but everything underground is the roots. So there's roots going all the way down to about here, and obviously if you've got a tree, its roots are going to be much deeper. Think how deep the roots of one of these trees might be. And the soil, what is soil anyway? Have a think about it. What is soil? If you get a little bit in your fingers, you could have a look at it. Soil is actually made of ground up rocks and then things like dead plants. So it takes a very long time to make soil, thousands of years. So maybe we're going to take this apart and we'll see if there's any earthworms in there and see what they're doing, see how important they are. Right, so here we are, this is that bit of soil, and I've just started to rip it apart and have a look at what's inside. So you can see, maybe you can even find the individual plants. Look at that, pull that one out, and then you can see how big its roots are. So the soil, that's where the plants are getting all of their water from, all of the food, the nutrients that are in the soil, that's what's feeding the plants, as well as they're doing photosynthesis, so they're getting energy from the sun and they're making sugar, and that's what's letting them grow, but they also need all the other things that are in the soil. And the soil, it's not a dead thing, soil is alive. There's lots and lots of very small things in the soil that's alive. Have you heard of bacteria? So these are good bacteria. There's fungus, there's lots of little creepy crawlies, and then here I've found some of these. There's lots of these in this soil. Earthworms. So just in that little bit of soil I've got 5 earthworms. Some of them are big, some of them are small. But the earthworms, they're doing something really important. They're making their way through the soil and they eat all the little dead bits of the plants, the roots, and then they poo out the other side lots of new nutrients, and then that helps all of the other plants to grow. So the earthworms are really important at mixing up all that food, making up new food, and they make tunnels as well, don't they? They make tunnels as they go through the soil, and that lets the water go down. If it rains, then the water can get down through the tunnels that the earthworms have made. So I think it would be really cool if we look at one of these earthworms and try and figure out how it moves.
Okay.
Alright, so we've just watched that wee video of the earthworm moving. Can you see how it's moving? So this is my drawing, and I want you to do a drawing like this as well for this week. All we've got here is the head, and it's got a tail. And if you look at the earthworm, you'll see that it's got all these little lines all the way down it, except in this little bit. And these are called segments. Okay, segments. And in each segment, there's different types of muscles. Okay, so can you imagine a sausage if you squeeze the sausage like that, what would happen? It would get longer. If you squeeze it in the middle, it would push everything out and get longer. Yeah? So that is what's happening in each segment. There's muscles like that, squeeze it, it stretches, and then there's wee little things like hairs, they grab on, and then it's got other muscles that pull it. So it squeezes, gets longer, grabs, and then pulls. Yeah, so there's two different types of muscles, round muscles and long muscles. Why don't you think about how your muscles work? So if you imagine your arm, there's a muscle here, it's called your bicep, and if you pull your arm up, the bicep it's called contracting, it's getting harder, and that's pulling your muscles, pulling your bones, and your arm goes up. And that's just what's happening in the earthworm. So it squeezes, goes out, and then the other muscles pull it back. It's pretty cool. Do you remember 2 weeks ago we spoke about birds and what the birds were eating and what they were feeding to the chicks? And here's a picture. This is a blackbird, and the blackbirds, if you see them, they like to look for food on the grass, and what they're looking for are earthworms. So they'll go around, they can probably hear the earthworm moving under the soil, and then they'll pick it and they'll get it out and take it back and give it to the chicks. So there's lots of good food in the earthworms. So it's really important that the soil is full of them, not just for the plants, but also for the birds and all the other animals round about. Alright, so now we're going to talk a little bit about compost. Do you make compost at home? Do you have a compost bin in the garden or maybe at school? What is compost? So this is our compost heap at Castlebank, and compost is basically all dead plant stuff like grass cuttings, lots of those, are banana skins, orange peelings, lots of like vegetable peelings from the kitchen, maybe carrots, onions, skins, the bits that we don't want to eat. And what we do in a compost heap or in a compost bin is you pile them all up over time. So on the top here, this is nice and fresh, and if you look down, can you see how it changes? So it's green at the top, and then it goes brown, and then down the bottom it's quite dark, and that is almost good compost for using down the bottom. That stuff's maybe 6 months old. And what is happening in compost? So when you pile up all this plant stuff together, can you look at this thermometer here? So I've just stuck a thermometer in there, and the temperature that it is in there is 55 degrees Celsius. That's pretty hot, okay? You could put your oven on and put it at 55 and see how hot that is. It's almost too hot for you to put your hand in there, it would burn you. And what's happening there is you have lots of bacteria. So remember bacteria, there's bad bacteria which can give you a sore tummy, there's good bacteria in the soil, and then there's different bacteria in here. And what it's doing is it's breaking down, it's eating all of this dead plant stuff. And when it does that, it makes heat. So think about your body again. When you eat food, you make heat. So you're getting energy out of your food. And that's what the plants are doing. That's what the bacteria are doing when they eat the plants. So they're eating it all, digesting it, and then afterwards you start to get all of these insects and other invertebrates. So in here, if you look, there's lots of composting worms, there's wood lice, There will be afterwards those slugs in here, big slugs. Then you'll get earthworms at the end. They'll come in and eat some of that as well. And compost, once it's ready, that's really, really good for the garden, because there's all that plant food is in the compost, and we can put it in the garden, or you can put it in a pot and grow plants in the pot. Yeah, so compost is very, very important. Almost as important as the soil. But without all of these things, the bacteria, the worms, the slugs, little creepy crawlies, we can't make compost, and we don't have healthy soil. Right, so just the last little thing I want to show you today and get you to think about is here. This is some compost that we buy at Castlebank, and this is made in a recycling centre. Okay, so it's black, it's got lots of little bits of twigs and wood in it, and this is made with the stuff that you put in your red bin at home. So when the bin lorries, they come and collect all of your garden waste. So if you cut the grass, or you put your food waste in the red bin, then the bin men come, they pick it all up and they take it somewhere and they make compost with it. So this is really got lots of nutrients in it for the plant. So just think about that next time when if you're helping make the dinner at home, or you help cut the grass or cut a hedge. You're going to put it in your bin, and it's going to be turned into this lovely compost, which I will buy, and I'm going to put it all around the plants here on the soil, and it's going to feed the soil, and the earthworms are going to love that. So that's why it's really quite important that if you have food waste at home, put it in your red bin. Don't put it in the black bin, because then it'll just go off and they'll bury it somewhere in a landfill. Whereas if it goes in the red bin, it gets turned into this lovely compost. Alright, so that's all for this week. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to seeing your drawings of your earthworms. You can make them more detailed than mine if you want. Maybe colour it in, or try and find a different type of worm. There are other types of worms as well, so you could look that up. Alright, so see you again. See you next week. Bye bye.